Hi everybody, welcome to episode 7 of Simple Sips. This week we'll be traveling over to Portugal to visit our special guest winemaker, Cristiano Van Zeller. This episode will be focused solely on the education of ports. So if you're really interested in learning about port wines, whether it's the history or the different styles, this is going to be the perfect video for you. Take it away, Cristiano.
Dear friends, welcome to our virtual tasting of some Van Zellers and Company ports. First of all, I'd like to thank the Wine Connection and the Messina family for your great support and to include our Van Zellers ports in your Wine Connection virtual grand tasting 2020. Thank you very much, and it's a great pleasure to be here. Second, I hope everybody that will be watching this small tasting and this small chat will be safe and in good health, and that they stay like that in this very crazy times and terrible times we're all going through. Now, Van Zellers and Company is a family company, and my family has been in the business since at least 1620. I'm the 14th generation of the family in the Douro wine business and port business. And myself, you can see from my white beard that I've been for quite a long time doing this, since my heydays when I didn't have a black beard, a white beard, I had a black one. So time transforms everything. And so time transforms our wines too. And it's time that creates our wines. It's time that creates wine. It's patience, it's knowledge, and it's also a lot of passion and a lot of pleasure in having this passion towards producing something that enhances the opportunities for all of us to be together, even in these very difficult times. Now, we produce at Van Zellers and Company both ports, which is our base, our history, but also Douro wines, dry wines from the Douro region, which is the same region that produces port from exactly the same grapes. But now here I'm only showing 3 of our ports, of our range of ports. And I thought it would be fun to put next, we're not going to taste that because these are unique bottles of a very old 10-year-old Tawny that was bottled about 50 or 60 years ago, which is on my left, on your right when you look at this video, and a very old 19th century white port from Van Zellers and Company. A unique bottle that we found in our cellars and have been kept graciously for one day someone will open them and drink it. That's the future of any wine we all hope to be drunk and enjoyed by everybody. We've decided to explain port in different families and categories. Here we have the 2 main families of port. Vintage port, our ruby ports that are bottled at a young age and for aging in bottle in our case, with vintage port and late bottle vintage. I don't have the late bottle vintage here, but we also have, of course, a late bottle vintage in our range, 2015 being the current vintage. This is our 2017 vintage port. These are ruby ports, very young ports, bottled at very young age. In the case of vintage port, 2 years of age after the harvest, and that will age in bottle. And then we have the wines, the ports that age in cask all their lives, and we call them Tawny ports. And we have 2 examples, a 20-year-old and a 40-year-old, which I will talk about in a little while. But we also have thought it would be fun and more interesting to explain our wines and our ports within a different concept. And so we've created 3 trees under which we put all our fruits, that create all our fruits, which are our wines and our bottles. One is crafted by hand, the other is crafted by nature, and the other is crafted by time. Here we have examples of crafted by nature, the vintage port, and crafted by hand, the 20 and 40-year-old tawnies. But what are these little families that we have thought as interesting to explain? Crafted by hand, port is basically a blend of many different grape varieties, a blend in the cases of the crafted by hand of many vintages, all blended together to make the ideal wine to be presented to the market. And in the crafted by hand, we have all these wines, all these ports that are blends in the most large sense of the word. Blend of different grape varieties, which all of our wines and all our ports are, and blend of different vintages, different years that age in cask for such a long time until the blending happens. And we have a 10, a 20, a 30, and a 40-year-old tawny ports, blended, crafted by hand, because it's the human hand that blends and picks up all the different casks and all the different glasses and all the different components in order to make the final blend, the final wine, which will be bottled. These are 20-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 40-year-old, our average ages, the average age of the wines within this blend. And it's really the human hand that crafts these wines. Every year, we make one blend a year in order to make sure that these wines are consistent, and they all are every year with the average age that is reflected on the label. And crafted by hand are all these handmade wines in the sense that we blend them and put them all together, and it's the human feeling that gets into the bottle. We have then crafted by nature. Why do we call it crafted by nature? These are wines that are put in bottle at a very young age. There are three examples of these crafted by nature. Wines of a single year that reflect the year, that reflect the pure power of what nature has given us, and are put into bottle at a very young age, at a very young stage, without any fining or filtering or anything. So it's nearly raw nature, conducted by the human hand, but raw nature that is put into bottle. And the king of all these wines for us is vintage port. In Port region, it's vintage port. And this is the example we've got here with 2017. And this is nature put into bottle. When you ferment port, you ferment it only for 1/3 of the time, only about 6 degrees of natural alcohol. Then we stop the fermentation by adding grape brandy, the distilled wine of great quality. And then we stop the fermentation, and we keep the natural sugar of the grapes. But during that first tier, that first third of the fermentation, that represents more or less about 1/3 of the normal fermentation. And that first third of the fermentation means that we only extract the pure fruit flavors that you find in wine. Black currant, black plums, black cherries, raspberry, strawberries, all the pure fruit. And this is what you feel in the very young wines when bottled, vintage port, late bottle vintage, and crusted port. And these wines will be bottled at a very young age, 2 years of age for crusted port and for vintage port, and 4 years of age for late bottle vintage. And they will have a very ruby color, like you can see here. Oh, delicious. And they taste really of pure fruit. This has got incredible. I've opened this bottle yesterday, to be frank, because I prefer it to taste it one day later. The wine breathes and gets so much more out of it. Oh, there's incredible black cherries. And blackberries. Wow. It's really intense. You get all that fruit, all that beautiful, pure fruit. And this, it's nature. No fining, no filtering. It's like we crush the grapes, we ferment the grapes, we put the final wine, once it's finished, into a cask. I remember in my heydays at Quinta Noval, my family property of Quinta Noval, when I was working there, and before with my great-grandfather. He died when I was nearly 10, so I remember him vividly. Luis Vasconcelos Porto, a great man of port. And I remember that the vintage port casks used to be rolled, so to mix all the deposits and everything, to make sure that everything went into the bottle as pure as possible. And this is vintage port. This is the crafted by nature. This is our LBV. This is our crusted port. And so we think that saying crafted by nature, we transmit a message of purity, and that was reflected in the wine in its pure flavors and its incredible intensity. It's the year, it's the nature as it is. Then we have crafted by time, and crafted by time is what it says. It's only time. And those we have what we call the colheita ports, or single harvest tawny ports, wines that age in cask all their lives. We have 1934 in cask, 35, 40, 50, and many others, and even in the 19th century, they're still in cask. And we only put them in bottle when we have an order, a demand for one bottle, where it's all done by hand. We sell one bottle of these wines if necessary, and we bottle one specific bottle for that specific order. And so this is time that makes them. They're in cask all their lives. They breathe the oxygen through the cask, through the wood, and they transform themselves into tawny ports. And these are crafted by time. These are colheita single harvest. We don't have any here at this point. But we'll have a lot of beautiful collection next year, from spring next year on. You'll be on the market. And then we have crafted by nature, as I explained earlier, our blended tawnies, 10, 20, 30, and 40-year-old, the concept that was invented, so to speak. It was defined by my great-grandfather, Luis Porto, Quinta Noval, in the 1920s, that long ago. And it's that spirit of the original idea that my great-grandfather had. I was the eldest great-grandson, and I have a vivid memory of the tastings with him, and where I was not even allowed. I did it. We just put my finger and touch it, but I was not even allowed to do that. But just to smell, I could smell all these flavors of the wines when he was tasting. I was a little kid, and speaking to him. And that memory, and then later in my working life at Quinta Noval, and then later on at Van Zeller and Company and all that, it's that spirit that I try to put into our blended and crafted by hand tawny ports, our 20-year-old and our 40-year-old. I don't know if it's possible to see. There's the hints of gold in your right, in my right, which is your left, the 20-year-old, and the hints of green oxidation, further oxidation 20 years later, beautiful greenish edge, gold edge, tawny tile color on the 20, and greener edge on the 40-year-old. Absolutely marvelous. Here you still have a little hint of the fresh fruit, which completely disappears in the 40-year-old, of course, because the fresh fruit during the aging and aging into tawny port transforms itself into dry fruit, walnuts, almonds, honey, orange peel, orange flower, toffee, caramel. It's a bit early in the day, but we do the tastings in the morning anyway. Absolutely delicious. Tawny port should be drank fresh, nearly as white wine fresh when you think of white wine, because that enhances the beautiful flavors and sweetness of the wines, and these dry fruits and the incredible flavors of toffee, caramel, honey, orange peel, We've put on the label, in fact, I don't know if you can see that, but we have on all our labels of the tawny ports, we put the tasting flavors that we find most important and how they taste. It's written there so that people can try and identify when they buy a bottle what they're going to drink and they're going to enjoy and taste. Well, I was asked to do 6 minutes. I always overdo it, everything. I'm not a small guy, I'm a rugby player, so I always overdo everything. So I've spoken a lot. Once again, Messina family, thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you for your support. And I hope that soon, much sooner rather than later, we'll all be together and physically, personally, we can all hug each other. I miss hugging my friends and miss hugging everybody. And of course, I miss hugging my clients, most important than everybody else. Hopefully, we'll all be together next year and have the opportunity to meet and to do this tasting with a lot more wines, with a lot more people around the table, and do this personally and physically and have a great moment together. Thank you very much, and enjoy, stay safe, and well, we're getting to Thanksgiving, very close. Happy Thanksgiving. And Christmas is coming. Have a Merry Christmas and Hanukkah, and God bless you all. Cheers.